This is a Fox News Alert. Chicago on edge, bracing for protests as a graphic video is released. Be warned, some viewers may find this extremely graphic. The video showing a white cop shooting and killing a black teen. That officer, Jason Van Dyke, just charged with first-degree murder. And in that video from 2014, 17-year-old Laquan McDonald can be seen walking away from police armed with a small knife. Officer Van Dyke then opens fire, hitting McDonald 16 times. The on-the-record legal panel is here. Former homicide detective and criminal defense attorney Ted Williams, former prosecutor Katie Phang. Ted, first to you, 16 times. He gets out of a car and opens fire 6 seconds later. He's fired 16 rounds in 14 seconds.
Well, Greta, I can tell you I'm outraged about this because this happened in October 2014. We're just learning about this young man being shot 16 times by this officer. And when you look at the video, this kid is not.
Well, I mean, don't you want a thorough, complete? I mean, like, I want the right investigation. I'm scandalized by what I see on the video, but taking a year for investigation, I mean, that's the least of the problems.
It's the least of the problems, but it showed that, as far as I'm concerned, there was a cover-up in that city of this. They could have brought this out a lot sooner. They didn't.
You know, I'm actually surprised, Katie. When I was practicing law, they wouldn't release any videos or anything until after it had been introduced into evidence. We get this video, and there hasn't even been a trial. It's a stunning video.
It's a stunning video. It's shocking. He literally, Jason Van Dyke, is that bad apple in every bunch that we talk about. And he's the reason why cops get a bad name in terms of the violation of people's rights. I mean, the poor Laquan McDonald, he's dead. But I actually disagree with Ted. I don't think there was any type of cover-up. It takes a long time to investigate a police shooting properly. And the thing that I'm worried about is, was there a rush to indict him for first-degree murder to avoid riots in the streets of Chicago? If I were his defense attorney, I would be all over that.
You know what, though, Katie? But, Katie, according to what's being released, is that he was shot from 10 feet away. So, you know, it's very hard to say that a police officer would be in reasonable fear. He's there armed. He's with another police officer who's armed. Now, he had a knife, but it says small knife. But nonetheless, 10 feet away is not is quite a distance to shooting someone.
It is quite a distance away. And, Katie, you may disagree with me, but you had this video. Any other person, if it wasn't a police officer, you had a video of a police officer being shot this way, you wouldn't take a day.
Let's bring in Mr. Trump right now. He joins us on the phone. You just heard those poll results, Donald Trump. Also, a new poll out in New Hampshire showing you holding the lead. Is the nomination now yours to lose?
I don't know. I don't think about it. I think about the date. All of a sudden, February 1st comes. That's Iowa. And then we have New Hampshire. We're doing great in both those places. We're doing great all over the country. I think I'm leading every state. But we're doing really well. I was happy to hear your numbers, but I'm not that surprised. And we'll see what happens. I mean, people are tired. They're sick and tired of incompetence. They're sick and tired of stupid people leading them. The deals they make, whether it's trade or whether it's dealing with ISIS, everything is wrong. They don't know what they're doing. I was after the oil. I said, attack the oil. I've been telling you that, George, for 2 years. Yeah. Attack the oil. They didn't do it. ISIS became wealthy with the oil. Now they're starting to attack the oil. Nobody mentions it was me.
You did stir up a controversy with those comments over the database. Let's try to clear that up. Are you unequivocally now ruling out a database on all Muslims?
No, not at all. I want a database for the refugees that if they come into the country. We have no idea who these people are. When the Syrian refugees are going to start pouring into this country, we don't know if they're ISIS. We don't know if it's a Trojan horse. And I definitely want a database and other checks and balances. We want to go with watch lists. We want to go with databases. And we have no choice. We have no idea who's being sent in here. This could be the great Trojan. It's probably not, but it could be the great Trojan horse of all time.
And
where they come in. When I look at those migration, when I look at the migration and the lines, and I see all strong, very powerful-looking men. They're men. And I see very few women. I see very few children. There's something strange going on. And if you look at what's happening in Europe, a lot of bad things are happening in Europe. Just ask the folks that live in Germany, George. A lot of bad things are happening. So
the statistics
we want to be smart. We want to, hey, George, we want to be vigilant. We have to be vigilant. And we have to call is radical. You know, we have to just say it's radical Islamic terrorism. And that's what it is. And we have a president that won't even issue the term. But when these Syrians come in, or wherever they are, because we're not even sure that they're coming in from Syria, if they're going to come in, We have to be very, very vigilant, and database would be fine for them, and watch list is fine. We have to watch and see what we're doing. They should not come in, by the way. They should not be allowed in.
Just for the record, though, the statistics do show the majority of the refugees coming in are women and children. You've also told Yahoo News that we have to be doing things that were unthinkable a year ago. I want to get into what you had in mind. For example, do you think we should bring back enhanced interrogation like waterboarding?
Well, we have to be strong. You know, they don't use waterboarding over there. They use chopping off people's heads. They use drowning people. I don't know if you've seen with the cages where they put people in cages and they drown them in the ocean and then they lift out the cage. And we're talking about waterboarding.
So you'd bring back waterboarding?
We have to. I would bring it back. Yes, I would bring it back. I think waterboarding is peanuts compared to what they do to us, what they're doing to us, what they did to James Foley when they chopped off his head. That's a whole different level. And I would absolutely bring back interrogation and strong interrogation.
You've also said we have to consider closing mosques. Jeb Bush called that a sign of weakness.
Well, Jeb Bush is a weak person, and that's been defined very strongly. I mean, Jeb is a weak person who is I call him a low-energy person. That's what he is. I mean, you call him anything you want. But Jeb is a person that will not solve a problem like this. You have very, very tough people that you're dealing with. They only understand strength. They don't understand weakness. Somebody like Jeb and others that are running against me. And by the way, Hillary is another one. I mean, Hillary is a person who doesn't have the strength or the stamina, in my opinion, to be president. She doesn't have strength or stamina. She's not a strong enough person to be president.
But what would be your criteria for closing a mosque?
We're dealing with very, very strong people, and you need strength and you need stamina.
I get that, but I want to get the details, though. What would be your criteria for closing a mosque, and how does that square with the First Amendment? You said your top priority would be to preserve and protect our religious liberty. Is that only for Christians? What are your criteria for closing a mosque?
Well, I don't want to close mosques. I want to surveil mosques. I want mosques surveilled. We were doing it in New York City for a while until the worst mayor that New York City has ever had got elected, de Blasio, which was a fluke. And, well, I would do, certainly there are certain hot spots, and everybody knows they're hot spots. And let me tell you, the people that aren't involved in those mosques, they know who the bad ones are, and they know who the good ones are, but they don't talk. And we have to surveil the mosques. And we were doing it. We were doing it recently until de Blasio closed them up in New York City. We were doing it recently. We have to surveil the mosques. And big material and good material, from what I understood from a very good source, was coming out of those mosques. We were learning a lot, and they were stopping problems and potential problems by learning what was happening. Hey, look, I don't want to close up mosques, but things have to happen where you have got to use strong measures, or you're going to see buildings coming down all over New York City and elsewhere.
You've also talked about you want to keep the terror watch list, but under current law, individuals on the terror watch list and the no-fly list have been allowed to buy guns and explosives. Are you okay with that?
We have to have a watch list, and if that watch list has somebody that's, we have the laws right now. We have the laws already on the books as far as Second Amendment and guns. And as you know, I'm a really big proponent of the Second Amendment. I'll give you an example. If in Paris, some of those people, if some of those people had guns, you wouldn't have had the horror show that you had.
But why should someone on the watch list be able to have a gun?
No, if people are on a watch list or people are sick, this is already covered in the legislation that we already have, George. It's already fully covered.
No, but under current law, people on the watch list are allowed to buy guns.
Listen, George, if we have an enemy of state, I don't want to give him anything. I want to have him in jail. That's what I want. I want to have him in jail. But if those people in Paris had guns in that room, it would have been a shootout, and very few people would have been hurt by comparison to the number that were hurt.
But yes or no?
I'll tell you who would have been hurt. The bad guys would have, because they were the only ones that had the guns.
Mr. Trump, yes or no, should someone on the terror watch list be allowed to buy a gun?
If somebody is on a watch list and an enemy of state, and we know it's an enemy of state, I would keep them away, absolutely.
You know, you raised some eyebrows yesterday with comments you made at your latest rally. I want to show them relating to 9/11.
Hey, I watched when the World Trade Center came tumbling down. And I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering as that building was coming down. Thousands of people were cheering.
You know, the police say that didn't happen at all. Those rumors have been on the internet for some time. So did you misspeak
It did
yesterday?
happen. I saw it. It was on television.
You saw that with your own eyes?
George, it
Police
did
say it
happen.
didn't
There were
happen.
people that were cheering in the other side of New Jersey where you have large Arab populations. They were cheering as the World Trade Center came down. I know it might be not politically correct for you to talk about it, but there were people cheering as that building came down, as those buildings came down. And that tells you something. It was well covered at the time, George. Now, I know they don't like to talk about it, but it was well covered at the time. There were people over in New Jersey that were watching it, a heavy Arab population that were cheering as the buildings came down. Not good.
As I said, the police have said it didn't happen. What I want to move on right now, a chorus of rivals have pounced in their database comments, and a super PAC supporting John Kasich launched this ad against you.
On-the-job training for president does not work. Benghazi, beheadings, Paris. Our lives depend on a commander-in-chief with experience who understands the world.
Clear implication is that you don't. What's your response to that ad?
John Kasich is going nowhere. He was at the head of Lehman. He was one of the top people at Lehman when Lehman Lehman Brothers almost took down the world. He's going nowhere. Let him do his ads. Anybody that does an ad against me, it'll be hit by 10 times, and that's the story. And, you know, people would like to do. Look, they want to do it because I'm leading. I mean, you just came out with a poll that says I'm leading, but everyone else is coming out with polls saying I'm leading because people are sick and tired of stupid and incompetent people leading our nation. We have incompetent people. When President Obama stands up and says ISIS is contained, and then a few hours later you have one of the most horrible attacks where hundreds of people are killed, and you have 300 people laying in the hospital, many of them dying, they'll be added to the list of the people killed. And we have no idea. And then he wants to take in people that have no documentation, no paperwork, no anything. From Syria on the migration, people are going to come pouring in, and the number he wants is much higher than 10,000. I've heard it's 200,000. That's the real number he wants. I've even heard 250,000 people. We have a president that doesn't know what he's doing. We have a president, George, who is totally incompetent.
That number is all refugees, not from Syria. But finally, you know, that super PAC is not alone. Front page story in the Wall Street Journal yesterday talks about GOP operatives planning to launch a guerrilla campaign against Trump. They're saying the Republican establishment is increasingly alarmed by your enduring strength and that they're going to have the first attempt to unite donors from rival camps into a single anti-Trump force. If that begins to happen, are you going to reconsider an independent run if they come after you to try to take you out?
Well, we'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting, but I'm leading every poll by a lot. It's not even a little bit anymore. It's a lot, and I resonate with the people. I had 10,000 people yesterday. Every place I go, if I have crowds smaller than 10,000, it's like a small crowd for me. Nobody else can get 200. I mean, Jeb Bush and these guys, Kasich goes out, he speaks. If he gets 20 people in a room, it's a lot of people. Nobody else gets anybody. I get crowds, and you know it, you cover it. I get crowds of 6,000, 10,000, 20,000. I had a 35,000 crowd.
But you're open to an independent run?
Well, I'm going to have to see what happens. I will see what happens. I have to be treated fairly. You know, when I did this, I said, I have to be treated fairly. If I'm treated fairly, I'm fine. All I want to do is a level playing field. And I think people are surprised that, you know, they're politicians and they've been doing this stuff all their lives. I haven't. I've been a job producer. I've done great, you know, things. I've done fabulous developments all over the world, and I've made a lot of money, and that's the kind of thinking we need in office. That's the kind of thinking we need in Washington, and that's why people are resonating with me. And, you know, they know there's a great level of competence. We have a great level of incompetence right now in Washington, and frankly, we have a lot of incompetent politicians running for office, and they can't understand, you know, how come an outsider can be doing so well within the party. I used to be, George, the fair-haired boy. You know, when I was a contributor, I know more about contributions than anybody. I contributed at the top of the line. But now all of a sudden, I'm somebody that's a little bit, you know, they're a little bit, I guess they can't understand what's happening. But what's happening is very simple. People want competence now. They're tired of incompetent people. It's as simple as that.
Mr. Trump, thanks for your time.
To do an investigation.
I don't
You would
think
have moved a lot faster.
They didn't wait a year to do the investigation. I mean, I don't know what took so long, but
I just don't think it should have taken so long, Greta. I think this is outrageous. I think the city leaders have some responsibility to bring this kind of thing to the public's attention, and it doesn't take a year to do it.
I guess now that we have it, I don't see that they tried to hide it. this was always going to come out. As far as I know, they settled with the family of the young man who was $5 million. But I mean, like the facts are pretty stunning. I mean, apparently, what happened, according to the facts in the Chicago Tribune, is that he fired 16 rounds in 14 seconds. He was reloading his gun when another officer told him to stop. Katie?
The entire factual scenario. Yeah, the entire factual scenario is absurd. He was surrounded by 5 other cops now. Laquan McDonald was armed with a knife and had PCP in his system, which we know leads to paranoia and hallucinations. But the reality is they were trying to corral Laquan McDonald. He had taken a knife and stabbed the tire and stabbed the windshield of a police squad.
Katie, who gives a damn? He wasn't a threat to the police officers. A police officer can shoot a person if they're a threat to the police officer or to them or another citizen. You can't just assassinate somebody like this guy was assassinated.
I think the important fact, if I were on a jury, is that he was fired from 10 feet away, according at least to the report, and that's 10 feet away, and he's armed with a gun, and there are other police officers there, and that he unloaded his gun. He unloaded the gun. The guy's on the ground after the first or second shot, and he's reloading.
But we must make sure we're clear here to the public. There are some wonderful men and women on police forces. This guy is not representative of those men and women.
He will get his trial, and the jury will have a chance to consider it. But indeed, that is so true. I've been down to that police memorial where there were more than 21,000 names etched on there. But this officer will get his trial. Ted and Katie, thank you.
He will.